Chat. Oh, hi, Jonathan.
Hi.
I
I'm not going to share.
thought about bringing my laptop, but
Oh, don't worry.
it was that or the wine.
You chose well, my friend. I think you're muted. Maybe my
Oh yeah.
speaker.
Yeah. You don't live very far apart, I suppose. My geography of South West London is not
Oh,
perfect.
come on. You live in the middle between us, dude.
Yeah.
You should be
Well, I
here.
mean, Frodo, I've never been to your house. I don't know exactly where you live.
Well,
And
that's something that has to change, isn't it?
right.
Let me see if I can fix
All
this.
right.
Okay, that's a
Hi.
little better.
You're up there. Yeah.
We don't,
You're
we don't want super blurry background.
cool.
Studio light. I do all these.
This way you put your you should put your favorite books.
I
Oh,
Have a
yeah,
classic
actually,
Zoom arrangement of books with especially books you've written in series.
I'm re-reminding you of this one.
Ah,
oh PQ and I
no, I don't do that. Don't know that. I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, I just finished it, and it's very rare. I finish a book, and I usually read till I get the point and put it away. But
Yeah,
I checked
that's me.
reviews because I was going to cite it, and it turns out that The Economist had reviewed it. So I asked Tom Standage, and I think you know him, Jonathan. He's the deputy editor of The Economist, and he said he hadn't read it, but he met the author last week, and
Oh,
was very
okay.
impressed. It's a really interesting, really, really important, timely book now that we're on the cliff edge of civilizations.
So it looks like it's quite new, but not brand new. Was it last year or something?
The last chapter doesn't include, oh, damn.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So
So right, what we can learn from history, and what would you say is what's the one sentence version of the book
oh, it's really
from
easy.
your point of view? I mean, from the point of view of
Oh, he
future
keeps
generations.
repeating it, so it's very obvious. A civilization grows when it's open to new ideas, new influences, new people, open trade, and it contracts when it isn't. That's it.
That's fair enough.
yeah. Yeah.
I,
No lies detected.
The camera isn't doing what it should. It's supposed to be trying to get us both in. Hey, Ken, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm very busy because we have a proposal due this week, so I'm just in proposal land
Cool.
and NSF, so National Science Foundation. That's
Oh,
okay. I'll
oh, very
survive.
good. Talking of which, I got a reply from our friends at the three-letter acronym saying, all the nice words, thank you, nice to get in touch. We'll look into it, see if we can find someone, so we'll see what happens.
The MIT people.
Oh, damn, I'm gonna have to edit the video again. Yes,
Not supposed to
Jessica.
say MIT?
No, I'm just teasing. It was on the record last Monday. Yeah, no, I got a very nice message from Jessica, but considering it was Vint who did the introduction, that's not all that surprising. So we'll see if a reality happens. I don't have much updated work to show today. I have a little bit, but
Hmm.
it should be something by the end of the week, which is when I have to do the demo. Because yeah, so that's all good. Hi, Peter. I'm not sure if Peter can hear us. Yeah, I don't know who's coming today, but we have a tiny bit. Hi again, Peter. We have a little bit of an agenda, very loose as always, and I'm glad that Tess is here for many reasons. Always lovely to see her, but also the idea of what we're going to talk about next month. Hello, Fabienne.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Yeah, Fabienne, you know there's a British comedy called Allo Allo, right?
Don't think so.
Every time you say it, it makes me so happy, uncharacteristically so, because it's based on World War II in
Yes, yes,
France.
yes. I do know.
Yeah, and so when you say hello, hello, it just brings back all that silliness. Anyway,
I have a lot more silliness to bring back.
thank you. Silliness is very, very important. Um, okay. Oh, what's this context? Let's see here. Oh yeah, thank you for adding that context. And hey, Tom, or parts of Tom. There's Tom. And hi, Astral. I saw that you entered earlier. We are considering starting half an hour earlier because that's what we used to do. Would that be better or worse for you guys? Maybe particularly for the American ones. Ken and Tom, what do you think? Is that better or worse for you half an hour earlier?
Well,
I
at this
tend
point,
to-
I'm.
I
Go ahead,
schedule
Ken.
meetings in the morning, but I could try to change it.
But would it be better for you? What would be your benefit?
Wouldn't be any benefit for me of it being earlier.
Okay.
Likewise, at this point I have a class from 8 to 9:30 on Monday mornings, so it gives me a little bit of a breather between class and this. So
Okay, we'll leave it as it is. That's good. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit agendaing now. Well, of course, unless someone else has something first. Going to paste the agenda in 1 second. So, okay, one thing I will say before we go into that, and that is Sloan is finished. Don't worry, Tom. Yeah, Sloan is finished, and that means several things. It means, we're looking for new opportunities and stuff. It also means that, I don't know about you guys, but I feel a little bit freer about the things I talk about. And we're certainly not going to do politics today, but a little bit of context I think is useful. Last week, I'm sure you here in the UK have seen it, the Pentagon released the new something or other official thing saying if Europe or NATO anywhere needs help, they're going to give less. That was to me a big wake-up call. With all the things happening in the world, we all have seen the Carney speech in Davos, of course, to an extent. So this is why it is so important for me that, here's Ken. Mm-hmm. Ken too. Hey, Ken. Not sure if he's coming on video.
Hello.
Hello. Good timing. I was just saying that because of all kinds of things happening in the world, it is really, really important that we work on tools for general thinking, right? Some people are interested in helping people detect fake news and propaganda. That is not really our forum. Our forum is more the belief that if you believe in a liberal democracy, as properly defined, then you believe in, if people are, just waiting for Brandel. Hi, Brandel. Just at the tail end of a little bit of a context, just to be real quick before we're going to the real meat of things, and that is, with all the things happening in the world, and no one here needs to be reminded what they are, it really doesn't matter where we are on the political spectrum, things are changing. And therefore, I think it's really, really important that we keep working on things to help us think, to extend our thinking space and opportunity. I've been in email back and forth with Vint Cerf about this, and he was saying, how will XR help with truth? I'm not really interested in truth or facts. Facts are readily available. What I'm really interested in is helping us develop a richer environment for context, thinking, connections, and that stuff. So with you, Brandel, particularly, I know I'm preaching to the very choir. The thing that I sent out as an email, I'm not sure if you've all read it, obviously, is based on the very simple notion of Plato's cave, where it's a thought experiment that has been updated to people say, if you're sitting in front of a TV, and if that's all you've ever seen in your life, you will think TV is real life. I realized that that's how we treat our knowledge today. Most of our knowledge interactions is through tiny little framed rectangles. And we all know that knowledge is multidimensional. So that's why I think this work is so important going forward. We acknowledge, let's put it this way, crap in the world. We don't have to engage with any specific aspects of it. But just the intuition, I think we share the intuition that if, like for instance, Tess today, for the first time here with a headset, was able to walk inside the three-dimensional map, it's very different from sitting, and she was, obviously Tess can speak for herself, but just in closing, suddenly there was a piece of stuff behind her.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, yeah, it's that to me is the most exciting thing about it, is just the being able to touch it and being able to look around at it. Yeah, there's tremendous potential there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if everyone heard it. I got an email back from Jessica, MIT, saying, thank you for the introduction, Vint, all the nice words. They're going to look through the website, see if there's anyone who has any interest in this work. So I will hopefully be able to give them a demo later in the week, depending on what my guys are doing. I'll show you something really brief, and then we have a few other topics. But now it's Tom.
Yeah, I just want to second that, but I want to emphasize that one of the most subversive things people can do is to pursue knowledge for knowledge's sake. And if you can show the world a wide range of narratives, then they don't get stuck in their pinholes. And that's, I think, ultimately our mission. I think that's it's certainly my personal mission. And so, I mean, I just want to bring that out. I wrote a piece a few weeks ago about, and I'll drop a link in the chat, about how we need to get back to Enlightenment principles in terms of how we think about technology and the world in general, because those principles emphasized the human pursuit of knowledge and why that's important to humanity. And with AI and with visualization and with XR and all of these things, they're all new expressions of reality. Well, we need something to ground that in. And I think the Enlightenment's a good place to start, at least from a thinking standpoint. If not, I know some Enlightenment thinkers had some serious issues on the personal side when it came to equality of all men, but but in terms of the conceptual background of
women, yes.
Yes. No, well, I deliberately said men because I'm referring to the Declaration of Independence and,
No.
and what that means.
Exactly. But Tom, you bring up, it's really, really great that you bring up that point, because this book that I keep suggesting to you all, Peak Human, I've finally finished it. I don't often finish books. And it talks about America and stuff. America was the first nation to be explicitly founded on Enlightenment ideals. Right? So that makes some of the politics happening at the moment even more sharp in focus. But before we go on, there's another thing, Fabian, this is particularly for you, regarding AI. So I've been using ChatGPT for reading some of my important emails lately, and not to write them, but to read and give perspective. And as I think I mentioned last week, when the email to Jessica had researched the AI researched who she is, came back with, considering her, you shouldn't write this, you should write there. And then I get this one today on something else. Quote, this is from ChatGPT going through an email an article I was writing. It says, this is intellectually rich, ambitious, and very you, and that's a strength, blah, blah, blah. I'll paste it in here. Now, it really made me think of, there are many threats with AI, but the way the weights are set, like we were talking about Enlightenment ideals, we were talking about men rather than men and women. It's so easy, like the experiment I've been doing with ChatGPT to get feedback, it's been very good. But if the LLMs are trained outside of my morality, it's going to subtly push me in a wrong direction or in a weird direction. So, Fabian, that's a reminder to you that I'm really wary in trying to experiment some of these things. And I found that a bit frightening when it said, this is very you. It's like, I guess you know what that is. Right, I'm just going to paste in our brief agenda, loose brief agenda.
Can I have a thought about just having been in the map today, I guess, because I've been trying to think about why I'm so keen to have my hands on information, why I think it's so important, and what the benefit or the catharsis is about it. I mean, I think there's something very I think there is something great about being able to bring something to you or push it away. Just something naturally cathartic about it when you're thinking and processing. But I also wonder if it's not that our attention spans are so fried from years on computers and everything else. If I need to not just have my mind occupied, but it helps to have, myself physically occupied while I'm doing it, if that's not somehow something I feel I'm getting out of it.
I think that's probably the opposite. I mean, humans evolved in Africa on the savannah running, right? We've been evolved, as far as I understand, to run, not to walk. So for us to artificially sit still and just literally twiddle our thumbs with a joystick is a huge impediment. So the fact that you feel more involved is probably a good thing. I'm sure other people have comments on the embodiment of this, right? Brandel, yes, go.
Yeah, we are sort of triggered by what we're doing and how we're doing things. The proximity to certain objects and visual stimuli, as well as engaging in certain acts. The when you walk into your own bedroom or your own kitchen, the actual embodied memories of how you need to twist your body to reach certain cupboards or open certain drawers are sort of really top of mind. One of the challenges with the way that engaging in the computer in physically the exact same way every single time uh, sort of spurs is that then there are no sort of sense memories of what it is you're doing when you're doing a certain kind of thing over another. And so if we can kind of selectively recruit certain kinds of actions for certain kinds of outcomes, then there's going to be a profound difference in the sense of priming that we can achieve as a result of going into a data visualization exercise or into reading some kind of long form content. I just finished Kirschenbaum uh, uh, track changes, and there was a wonderful quote at the end of it about how um, writers inhabit their writing spaces, um, and that the cast of the light is as important as the choice of using WordStar versus WordPerfect versus whatever else. And I think it's a wonderful sort of note from admittedly only 2016, but from before a lot of this kind of discussion started that the environments that we use tell us a tremendous amount about what we're doing. So I think that even absent the special abilities that you get by virtue of being able to defy gravity and conjure things out of thin air in the way that Ken has done so successfully with Chalk Talk, just being able to set up a space for apprehending and comprehending certain things is going to be good. And then if we can actually make that space the more useful, then that's actually all gravy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Brandel, that was the seed you planted a couple of years ago in this community. And, I'm all in on XR now, partly because I'm finding it so hard to persuade people why it's useful. Right, so I feel that I was even considering today changing our group name to the Spatial Knowledge Lab or Spatial Knowledge Group or something like this. Because, yeah, I mean, right now I think we're all strongly on an intuition, and Tess was suggesting earlier, now might be the time to find a kind of a use case for something to do around these things. Because yeah, I don't know. I mean, Ken, both Kens, you have really rich experience with this. Would you like to highlight something that you think are really important aspects we should not lose sight of, maybe?
Well, speaking as one of the Kens, um, I I mean I think that what Brandel said was really important, and also when I am talking to you, I am in a certain space where I'm expecting to be in my physical body. I'd like to be in my physical body. I would like to use all that intuition that I have to communicate with you, to gesture, to speak, to point at things. When I'm reading a book, I might actually want to be in an opposite space. The blank white pages with the black text on it might actually help me to sort of tune out everything except for how I'm processing those thoughts. So I'm not so quick to try to say, oh, shouldn't they be mushed together? Because it depends on the context.
Oh, that context is absolutely key. Yeah, 100%. I mean, Bruce Horn. Ken, do you know Bruce Horn?
We've met, but I
Oh,
don't
okay.
know. So I'm
Because,
really
I mean, Brandel, I know you know him. After doing the Finder many years later, he wanted to redo the Finder and had a long argument with Steve Jobs about it. The version he wanted to call it was context. The whole thing should be based around the notion of context. So thank you for bringing that up. Ken, I see you have your headphones on. Are you ready to say stuff on this topic?
Well, I don't have much to say to that, to be honest. I'm just still thinking about it, and I'd say I'd agree with the other Ken, but I'll let you know if I have some thoughts.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is where it gets exciting. So the whole notion of Plato's cave, with people seeing a flat version of reality, is inspirational in one way, but of course, it meant other things. And in that story, it's actually Socrates who tells it to, I think, Plato's cousin or somebody, or brother or whatever. And of course, Socrates was very much against writing because writing is not interactive. So we're in this incredible situation now to be able to deal with both of those issues, more interactive writing, fully spatialized. It's kind of cool.
I'm wondering about the reading. Would it appeal at all, do you think, either Ken or anyone else, if the context was, you see all those atmospheric cafes and places and cabins on YouTube, they do those videos. Like if you could create that in the space and then have the white pages in front of you, would that, speaking of context, even though you can read in your house, would being in a setting that's like very hygge or whatever be more conducive to actually reading? Would that be something that would appeal?
I vote yes.
Well, I oh
Go ahead,
sorry, someone.
Ken.
No,
Sorry.
can
I,
go
I'm,
ahead.
I'm sharing. I
Go
want to
to
show
Brandel.
something, but go ahead.
Oh, so I mean, to me, it seems like it'd be different for everybody, but I can certainly report that for myself, when I go on an airplane, and I don't particularly like airplanes because, I fly coach and the seats are tiny and the people next to me aren't always the people I want to sit next to. That if I bring my little MacBook with me, I am not on the airplane. I am writing my code. I'm doing whatever I'm doing. I'm working on my document. And so to me, the goal which I successfully achieve is that nothing matters except that rectangle because I'm in that rectangle and it's all good. So I don't know that something outside of that would have any benefit for me, but that doesn't mean that I'm the only, that's just my case.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I also know that when I read a book of any length, having sort of a critical space that I can devote to the sort of offshoots of ideas that I have would be really wonderful. I read this Track Changes, a literary history of word processing recently, and there are all kinds of things that come up as a consequence of it. So I think in and of a moment, it's absolutely valid to have nothing but the text, but uh, it depends on what you mean by your reading and over what kind of time horizon you're doing it. And also, I think that even in that sort of denuding of other sort of aggressors to the context, that there are some wonderful things. So what I wanted to share was I'm not sure if folks are familiar with Young Hai Chang Heavy Industries. They're a poet duo. They've been doing net dot art since the 1990s. And they used to do Flash, but now because Flash is dead, they have to do other things. But because they have the SWF files up online, something that I've been really interested in doing is being able to reproduce some of their poetry, which is all just sort of kinetic type on a page. Previously 800 by 600, now thankfully whatever you want, but in full immersive virtual reality. It's not perfect yet, and obviously it's not their creative work with the intention of having it in VR. But I think it's interesting and compelling to think about what happens when type is full environment, what it means to be able to have something that is a kinetic typographical experience that is entirely occupying your total reality. And I don't think I got in this point, but sometimes the colors invert, sometimes there are and the exact position of these things is not quite right, but it's really, really interesting. And I think that the one of the things I'm really excited by is, some people might know, I have aphantasia. I don't have a mind's eye, um, and one of the things that that means is that even though I have a really good spatial memory, but not a good visual memory. So I know where things are. I know what things are shaped like. I know what space is, but I don't know what things look like in that. So I wouldn't be able to tell you color. And that's meant that I've been really interested in the difference between sort of primary visual stimulus and understandings of space. And I think that there are some really interesting things when we can have a little bit more leeway in terms of understanding scale and spatial relation and other things like that without having to bother with the actual details of what things are. Writing is incredible for what it allows you to reinflate and what it allows you to do. You don't have to know everything about a tree to know that there's a tree. And I think that being able to can combine textuality with scale and space is going to be an incredibly useful asset. So I'm really excited by it. I think that there are going to be some interesting poetic consequences to it. I'm going to be reaching out once I get a better job of this to Young Hai Chung and other folks like that in order to try to suggest to people that they think about text and space in this way. And I think that it would be a really valuable thing for folks in this community and elsewhere to play with. Sorry, that's a bit of a hijacking. That's all I wanted to say.
It's the best possible hijacking, and it really addresses the key thing we're trying to do here, and that is we're not trying to find the one true way. Right? It's so important. I'm so worried about what happened to the GUI. Once the Mac existed, there was no other paradigm for computing, right? We can't do that with XR. One thing, though, that comes out of both of those is, and by the way, I put in the link to our page today because for once there's a little bit of an agenda and I've updated it. That is annotations. So what Fabian did last year, when particularly dealing with the Dini example work, was spatial annotations. In the sense of, I'm sure most of you have seen it, you're reading something, and here's an interesting sentence. You literally, right, it's text, so I can say literally, pull it out, put it here. I think that is a real bridge between what Brandel and Ken were talking about. Because if you want to read with a basic just text or with a background or whatever, but to have your thoughts, either the pull-out thoughts someone else has or your own thoughts entered, spatially available, is so exciting, right? Because then you can look at the Fabian billboarding where you let go, or what we have in the vision right now where there's no billboarding, it's just kind of one axis. You can start putting those kinds of thoughts over there and those kinds of thoughts over there. And, okay, I'm going to have to do a quick demo now. Let me, okay. Sorry, Tess is the only person in the world who's seen it, but this is basically what we're talking about. So here we have a very messy map. You've all seen it. Please tell me if it's not projecting. So I'm going to move these guys over here. Take topic 4. Yeah, Peter's not here, unfortunately. Okay, Ken Perlin on top. So then I go down here and I do copy layout. I go back to the writing view, and then I say, and about paste Ken on top. That's the name of this map. So if I now click on Tess, it goes, that's not what I was supposed to do. See, it's still, yeah, hang on. Why does that not move? It's supposed to save the location, obviously, guys. Let me do one more. So Ken is there. Ken on top. Oh, okay, it's broken again. Great. Please ignore the last few seconds. I'm going to see if restarting it will change it. Actually, I'll go here. Go Ken on top. And then I'm going to take these two here. And we do paste new one. And then we're going to go back and mess it up a bit, okay? Even with you guys, it's nerve-wracking to do a demo, you know. Yeah, so it moved it back. Right, so there's still some issues. So Ken is now back here, even though I messed it up. So the whole point is these little ken on top should be the same as these little things here we use for citations, similar, right? And if we have a citation now as, this was the other big thing. Here's the kind of what we've been talking about. If we now double click on this one, Tools for Thought, it just shows the source as you've seen before, a little bit more information. But if I go here, it shows the full quote embedded. So the idea really is that we can embed citations with more information and spatial relationships more. I just think it's going to be super important. I mean, imagine if we figure out a language, a grammar, and a logic, and a structure, and an infrastructure for annotations, then we can do a really messy office, tidy it up a bit, and give that messiness to someone else. I think that's kind of exciting.
That's very exciting, yeah.
It becomes difficult in many, many ways. One is in terms of storage and life, we've talked about it for a while, but what is an annotation? I think at a minimum, the annotation needs to have all the citation information where it came from, right? But is it then owned by the document or is it owned by the environment? Probably the environment, right? And then we need to have some sort of mechanism to move it elsewhere. But these are fun challenges.
Yeah, even outside of spatial stuff, there's going to be an increasing push, as far as I'm aware, to vouch for the provenance of a lot of information coming up because of this sort of the AI, people's concerns about AI generation and other things like that. So that may actually help some of the data source kind of discussions and challenges that relate to this. But what it would mean is that it would be very useful for folks to be able to say, yes, that is useful, and we also need these other side of sort of literal and figurative dimensions in order to be able to fill out the picture. So, yeah, cool.
It's interesting the way you phrase that, Randall. It reminds me of calendar data that we've discussed a few times as well. It should be more easy to take a calendar event and give it to someone. Of course, what we can do is invite people, but to be able to take that and put it somewhere else. Of course, in HTML email, you can put things in, and the first Web 2.0 thing we went through, there were a lot of those little agenty type things. So if we have better ways to take, we're in the space, this is really interesting, give it to someone else in the community and it knows where it came from. That could be the start of an interesting network. So, yeah, Ken, please.
There was some work about maybe 20 years ago by Wendy McKay, who is a big contributor and actually organizer of the WIST community, User Interface Software and Technology. Her work was focused on studying how air traffic controllers work. And she said and this relates to what you just said. She said they write when they're like flight paths, particular airplanes that go from here to there to there to there. They write them down on little pieces of paper, and then they hand the paper to the other controllers who are responsible for whatever the new zone is. And the important point there is that that physical act and the fact that there's a single copy of it makes sure that they keep track of that and that they're aware of it. So that's just an example of how an old-fashioned physical token is actually very useful for a particular cognitive task where lives are at stake. And I was thinking we might want to keep in mind that there are things we're good at because we evolved in particular ways to work with the tangible world and with our bodies.
That's really super interesting. It reminds me of the importance of muscle memory. Is the landing gear up? All of these things. That is really, really important. And Fabienne, I think you talked, no, I know you did. You showed things where you have a physically 3D printed object but it has kind of a digital twin.
Yeah.
So, and also this is related to what's the name of that lab in California? That brilliant guy, where you have a lot of projectors in the room.
Red Victor.
Brett Victor.
Thank you, Brett Victor's work, right, where you have physical things that have digital information about them. So, thank you, Ken. That's really important.
It reminds me, a friend of mine told me a story about how when her kids had pool parties, I don't know if it was the school or the group of parents, there was always one parent on duty and they had a paddle. And the paddle signified don't just like they're on duty, do not distract them. And it was this kind of physical thing too, that they, that was their whole job for the 20 or 30 minutes that they were on duty, was watching the kids and nothing else. And somehow that having that physical object worked.
That's really clever. Thank you guys for the.
It seems like not letting the kids drown would have been enough, but the paddle was what really helped, I guess.
Oh yeah, 'cause it's so easy to go up and chat with someone.
Yeah.
So the checklist manifesto, Brandel, that's really brilliant that you say that. Do you want to talk about how he found out about how people make a building, or do you want me to talk about it?
Please
So,
describe it.
as far as I understand it, and please correct me, Brandel. So Atul is a surgeon. Things go wrong in surgery, but while he's working, he sees this new building, skyscraper, come up next to the hospital. He's wondering, how can they make a building with that many different people doing this many different jobs not fall down? How's that done? So one of the things he did was walked across and asked them. And they said that at certain stages, people have to talk to each other. It's that, in a sense, it's that simple. There's specific things that have to be followed. I'm putting a wall here. Do you guys need any cables through it? Even though they have the drawings, they have everything, they have to have specific things. And of course, the landing of the flight of the Hudson River, the captain there, he was one of the beneficiaries of this because he followed the checklist. Every single thing had to have been checked before. So it's both the communication and having procedures, right, Brandel? I'm sure you can say it better than that.
Yeah, it's the explicit sort of triggering of specific questions and tasks, rather than trying to be at the mercy of people's imaginations, and that even the best and brightest and ostensibly most disciplined of us will have a failure of imagination to understand those things. That's why if you ever go in for an operation these days, they need to actually mark with a Sharpie which arm or leg or limb you're doing, because if it's happened once, it's happened too many times that people have operated on the wrong side, and you never know just how wrong things can go. And so, yeah, those tangible trigger moments, those prompts, those environments are absolutely essential. I think that the paper case of that McKay raises, I think, is incredible for what the persistence and the tangibility of these markers could be. I often lament how amazing these Monday sessions are for the number of links it produces, but I don't have a good place for the window and the tabs that it creates, because I have a day job after that, and I devote all of my real estate throughout the rest of the week to my day job, and then I don't know where to put the Monday stuff. So if there was more space, if there was a way to reckon or to borrow sort of Jim Holland's kind of work to be able to restore the context that we construct as a result of this, then I think that would be an incredible way of being reminded to keep the building standing or make sure that the planes come home.
Right, well, we're going to talk about this, but just a brief aside, because I didn't realize how central that was, what you're going to say. Emily and I saw this weekend a movie called Left-Handed Girl. Have you guys heard of it? I'll tell you in a second why we saw it, but it's, as a human movie, it is one of the best movies we've seen in years. It's set in Taiwan. This young girl, her older sister and her mom moves to town. It's a bit complicated. There are stories, things happen. It's very well done. It was filmed exclusively on iPhones. Not even a new one, but I being a visually obsessive person, couldn't tell. But that's why I wanted to see it, because I'm that kind of guy. But as a human story, it's amazing. So in terms of technology, just wanted to get that in there. So one of the very first things you did, Brandel, in this community when we started doing XR was you did the magic carpet. So that's where Brandel took all aspects of the dialogue and literally made it into a shape, almost like a sound shape, right? So it ties together a ton of things. It ties together Ken's wanting a rectangle on a plane, sometimes context. It ties together of using the entire space, not just the shape of knowledge. I think that would be an incredible thing, Brandel, especially now that we have more experience, because all companies, all organizations need to have meetings. And there is a loss of knowledge between them. So to be able to spatialize that, and like we put that there and we have a thread there and have that, could be interesting research. And it relates to what we're going to be talking about next month, which is people in space.
Like instead of getting minutes of a meeting, you got a meeting map.
Yeah,
It's kind of fun.
because a lot of it, Randall, like you said, the links, they also do get kind of lost, even in the transcript. That's a really important and big topic, but on that note, we are today going quite wide, which I'm extremely grateful for, but oh yeah, Ken, please.
I just picking up on what was just said, it seems to me that one long-term goal we should have would be to have our meeting notes be an ability to just, put on our glasses and walk through the meeting that occurred, and then, even add our notes to it, like the way you can annotate Google Docs later.
100%. I think that will be crucial. One of the things, I think the reality of where we are now is it has to be AR, because locomotion through knowledge is important. Sitting down is okay. That's just a bigger display in a sense, right? But having to walk, first of all, you get energy, your brain works different. But if you do that, then of course, maybe you could do such a thing as Brandel did with the murals, where you do a special kind of pinch in the whole entire room, knowledge room in your room. Would be interesting. Sorry, my wife just came home, so I had to tell her to be quiet. Fabian, please.
So it's not going to answer your point, Brandel, much, but I submitted a proposal a couple of weeks ago on basically collecting all the artifacts of collaborations, including very transient collaborations, like having a one meeting with a person. And that would be, for example, here, transcript or the chat or the logs, having a quick repository if people are developer, then that's how I would expect them to do this. And the idea behind it is that it should be quick to set up, quick to discard, and eventually just keeping the traces, the data, and potentially having a timeline where you can have the range of just part of it, potentially spatialize the timeline just in 2D initially, like a whiteboard, blackboard, but it would potentially extend to a 3D or XR. But I think the core of this kind of proposal, that specific proposal at least, was very boringly like file-based, and how the different software we would use through that collaboration or those kind of collaborations would interoperate, because we have the data. There is nothing like super complicated in there. They are just pretty much locked in different, not even necessarily black boxes, but different pieces of software that don't talk together. We do all have our different operating systems, our different browsers or native apps to do those interactions together and collaborate. And we know there are artifacts. Again, there are not necessarily files that are accessible, but we know we produce this kind of data. So the way I see the core of the problem there is like simply interoperability, which I'm not sure what's the right way to tackle it. And for the proposal itself, my suggestion was, because most of those services for collaborations, they're managed through containers. That's what's trendy at the moment. would be how one would be able to fetch the different files as artifact of those containers, plot them on a graph, and eventually surface those different interactions. So that's the kind of on the back of my mind potential way to address some of it at the moment.
Thank you for that, Fabian. That doesn't sound very prototypey, which is very interesting for you, because I know you also like the fundamental issues, and that's a very fundamental one. This actually relates to our last item on the agenda, just to jump around a little bit. We've had a notion of bringing back the journal and making the journal monthly. Now, in my basic position, it's a PDF with stuff. It's just not very useful. Might this, if we have a monthly package of what you're talking about, maybe, Fabian, in different levels that can be accessed. So we do it maybe month by month, not necessarily the whole thing of, here are all the links presented in a certain way, and also next month's topic being people. These are the people over time. Might that somehow make sense? Start with you, Tom.
Can I make a further suggestion in that we are all overwhelmed by information and reading and stuff, and these days, especially with the flow of information that I have to manage on a daily basis, I'm constantly looking for shortcuts. So perhaps we could put this into a publicly available notebook LM where people can just run queries on it, and that might also help us think about, and we could do the transcript from these meetings. We could this would require virtually no work. If you just generated the transcript from the meetings and maybe the chat stream and dropped that all into a document, uploaded that into a notebook LM, and then shared that openly. You can do that now. Then anybody can go in there with a link and just search it and say, okay, well, what are the 5 key things that tie together the January 26th meeting with the January 21st meeting with what we were talking about, what the end product was last year. You could put the future of text volumes in there as well and see how those things tie together. And that might help us just use that as a construction to move the knowledge forward.
I mean, in Notebook, you can do a podcast too, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they can make a podcast of whatever it is you want to hear, so you don't have to take it in as a reader. It's almost conversational at that point.
So are you saying it's not enough that I make a song?
None of this precludes anything either one of you just said. I will caution on the podcasts that if you know the content of what you're listening to, the podcast is useful because often it gives you interesting perspectives. For the uninitiated, someone who has never read any of the stuff or participated in any of the conversations, the podcast can actually be quite misleading or difficult to follow. So, I mean, I use the podcast because it does. I mean, the most interesting thing I've ever done with a podcast is not to evaluate it or to listen to anybody else's work. It's to listen to my own, because when I drop my books in there, or an article or whatever, and I ask it to do the podcast of it, there'll be a lot of, at a 20-minute podcast, there's probably 16 or 17 minutes of, yeah, no shit, right? But there's always like 1 or 2 things that they bring up, and I'm like, wow, I wrote this and I never thought of it this way before, and that spurs me into deeper conversations with myself as I move forward with work, whatever I happen to be working on too. But I think that opens up some interesting possibilities.
Just to respond to Tom and then Ken, of course.
Yep.
So I do the song for a very similar reason. And for those of you who don't know, it is actually real if you look at our recent meetings, because the way the lyrics are generated puts it in a different way. So I listen back, it's like, hang on, is that what we said, right? Now, all of these are available. I do take all of this into sonnex.ai, tag all of you, then I put it into a plain text document where all the links are at the bottom. So that's done for 2 years now, 500 meetings or something like that. So I could absolutely make that available in a repository for easy download. I have become increasingly wary of the different uses of AI for this, But I think that if someone chooses themselves to put it into a notebook, and it doesn't take that long, I think that should absolutely be allowable. So
I'm
I
happy to do that. I have a pro account, so I can put a lot of sources in there. So, if you just want to give me a list of everything you'd want to put in there, then I can do that, and the location preferably, where I can find the files.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it for all our books
Yeah.
in Google Gemini just to experiment. But right, okay, thank you, Tom.
The,
And
the nice thing about Notebook LM is you do create a bounded environment that only includes our stuff,
yeah,
which can be highly useful.
yes, Ken.
Yeah, well, I think now everything has been said, but I wanted to second the idea of the podcast because so the Monday slot is it's not always convenient for me. So if I could just in the evening or next day listen to a podcast, maybe it's a monthly, maybe it's a weekly thing. I think that would help me a lot. I know it's also on YouTube, so I can also listen to it, but it's also the long form of it. So having some kind of more synthesized way to consume all the things that has been shared here, there would be, become much, the whole medium here, the whole forum would be much more accessible to me. But that's a very personal gain I would have from that.
No, that's cool. And I have experimented a little bit with this. I've done some podcasty things, but to me, when it's this kind of material, if it's more than a few minutes, the artificial voice gets really weird, which is why I did music. But I'll think more about it based on this. And Brandel, but then we have a joiner here, which is very nice. If you'd like to introduce yourself, entirely optional, feel free to do that after Brandel.
Yeah, good to see you. I'm not sure if you've heard or watched these things before, but I can give you a little bit of taste of this sort of thing that I say almost all the time. So I agree with the idea of being able to synthesize the text. I agree with summary, all of those kinds of things. I think one of the challenges of saying give it to AI or get it out of AI is that it's not really determinate of what it is that you do with that text or how you would be able to tell whether it's worked. Something that actually my wife Heather kind of pointed out to me recently is that Axios is really good in terms of what it does with writing. And we were like, what is it that they do? And it turns out that they actually sell this thing called Smart Brevity. I'm not here to shill it, but it was really interesting reading through some of their promotional materials and thinking about the similarity that it has to Bob Horn's structured writing methods and the sort of expectation that you have sort of summaries of things in themselves and structuring the function and purpose of paragraphs and things like that. And that kind of level of detail aspect of writing is something where you could achieve it with AI, or we could consider it to be an expectation that has to flow from writing, that writing isn't writing without this kind of thing. And we can kind of obtain it from what we like, either because it becomes a formalism that everybody expects in the same way that, a sentence starts with a capital letter. Most people except Apple marketing don't start a sentence with a preposition. Like those that the kinds of things that we expect writing is and what writing does can have a significant impact on how well it scales into this. Like I said, like AI could be it, but I think we need to be able to be a little bit more introspective into more and to be aware of some of the kinds of tools and the ways and the times that people have been more successful with being able to build writing of a kind that has the ability to be looked at these different levels of detail.
That's really, really interesting, and I think we
Writing
should
that down.
look towards the spatial aspect. But I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Is it IndieBio? Would you like to say hi? Hi.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I say indie bio. I don't really care how anyone says it. I think most people just call me Indie. My physical world name is Bernal, and I'm not even going to try with my surname. But hi. I'm here for two reasons. just jumping in quickly this week, maybe next week I can maybe do a presentation, just sort of trying to figure out the formats. One of my hats is chair of the Open Metaverse Interoperability Group, and there we try to build. We don't have a specific project, but it's a bunch of people. I think Astral's here, also from the community, believing that a better internet is possible, and working in all our diverse little ways to make that happen. So basically, a little support group for those sorts of people. Future of Text has come up a bunch of times, and I do mean to reach out with maybe a mutual event, but I think that's something for a later stage. And then related to that, I'm also a researcher. I bounced into the metaverse because of my need to integrate and visualize highly complex data. Originally, it was about urban resource management, getting local action that's still accountable to the bigger picture, and just surviving this apocalypse that we live in. And at the moment, I am submitting or preparing a proposal to a multinational call, harnessing disruptive technologies to address global challenges. And I basically want to use metaverse technologies. And I think what I mean with that, it's open to whoever joins, but system of systems data integration, AI assistant knowledge work, so responsible use of AI, which I think is relevant to what you've just been discussing in some meta way, and visualization. And so I think what you guys are talking about in terms of how we talk, how we learn, and how extended realities can help with that, I think is very relevant. I'd like the proposal to partner with libraries as well, and then use all of this in the case study of biosphere reserves. Like, how do we improve the functioning of them? How do we help with the conservation? How do we help that they are known to the wider world? Because they have these lofty goals, but then it doesn't really move out of their little silos. Yeah, I just jumped in from another meeting, so I'm not very much thinking on my feet here. I just wanted to show my face and say hi.
Hello. With a few minor tweaks, you basically read out our manifesto here, so that was nice to hear.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Where are you? Are you South African?
I am South African, well spotted, but I am now physically in the Azores, part of Portugal, so tiny island group in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, smack in the middle of the damn polar vortex. So it's not very pleasant at the moment. Well, I guess it isn't for anyone in the Northern Hemisphere at the moment.
So now I know who
Yeah.
you are. Very, very happy to see you.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Great. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. And also, I like the architecture of Zoom. It's literally a room. Anybody who has a link can knock on the door and come in. I think that's incredibly useful. It doesn't, yeah. I'm just going to jump a little bit back to what was just discussed, partly what Brandel was saying, and also these notebooks and all of that. Nothing wrong with people doing AIs in different ways, and responsible use is a big thing. But in terms of the spatiality of it, right, that is kind of a unique challenge for XR. And I don't know why it struck me when you were talking just now, is this thing of progressive disclosure that we have in traditional systems too. If we build a room with a capital R, let's call it that, of our meetings, for instance, how could we allow for progressive disclosure? Let's say we're looking at a link to of something that's been a recurring theme, like Brett Victor, for instance, who was a brilliant guy. He's been at a Future of Text. I keep forgetting his name. It's so embarrassing. It's ridiculous. But as an example of someone core to this who isn't here, how would we put that, and I say put that also in quotes, in this space? And how would we have interactions with that name to produce something useful? Right? This is becoming quite fascinating, and it relates to next month's theme, which is people in space. Tess has thoughts.
Well, it's I'm not sure. It's sort of related. It might be a little lateral. There is a company. I met a woman who has a company called Double A something. Maybe it's just Double A Enterprises. I don't remember. But they work on two-dimensional virtual spaces. So it would be this sort of a scenario, except we're actually in a room together, and we all have an avatar, and we're not our avatars aren't animated, but we can move them around. We get, if we go up to someone, we can get louder. There's all sorts of different ways to interact. You can click on links, you can do things in the system. But one of the things she found that was really fascinating to me was that if they put a mic in the room, for example, more people spoke up than spoke up on a regular Zoom. Like there was all these ways we're having something that was skeuomorphic in the room and make people feel like they were actually in a space together, inspired them to be more interactive and more outgoing than they would have been on a traditional Zoom, which I thought was really interesting.
I respectfully think that is wrong.
She studied it.
But can I add my 2 cents before you say it's wrong? So interestingly, that made me think of in-person meetings that have an online component. Because I've got this other project that I'm about to start managing, and having sat in like advisory meetings where I'm the person not in the room, it irritates me because they like just have their talk and whatever, and I'm over here going, I'm not part of this just because I chose not to fly there. Like this is ridiculous. And so I was thinking this online first thing is where you put a mic in the physical room, and then people who want to say something there need to go to the mic as opposed to just speak in the room. And so you're basically pretending like the physical space is a virtual space so that you make it more accessible to people who are not in the physical space. So it's an interesting little bridging. But you say it's wrong, so
No, I was just trying to raise the temperature of the room for a second. It's one of those cases where it's wrong and right, depending on. I mean, Fabian and Brandel and me, we've had, I think it's just one meeting with a Apple Vision Pro. We're in the same space. It's kind of annoying. Unless you are there because you love the beauty of the other person, it's a bit much, right? Like how often do we use face video on our phones? Not that often. Sometimes we do, especially showing someone, oh, look at the baby or whatever it is, right? But when you're in a conversation, if you're in a room, there are certain ways to look at people or not look. If you want to twiddle your thumbs, you go under the table. You don't have to do this, right? When you are represented as an avatar, for a lot of people, there's too much of you there, right? It's like, do we have to face each other? All of these things. So what's so exciting about that is that we can keep changing what that means. And exactly what you're talking about when a few people are not online. Oh, see you later, Fabian. Tess today didn't bring her laptop. She brought wine, so she's forgiven. But that's an example of that, where the online here is clearly the main community. So it wouldn't make sense if we had one speaker but two computers, so we would kind of be there the same way. So then we're kind of going back to the record of the meeting, the spatiality of it. There are some interesting things we could consider.
Also, I'm taking liberties in this meeting, I think, because I don't have a hand to raise virtually, which I would be doing if I were on my own laptop. So now I'm just politely butting in when I have a thought, and hoping everyone, yeah. and
this reminds me of,
yeah.
Carry on.
No, and hoping for everyone's forgiveness that I'm doing it. But so what you were saying reminds you of.
Yeah, during the pandemic, we were having these, laments of having to celebrate Christmas on Zoom. And it became, it's very stifled because you sort of have to speak one at a time, whereas in a real celebration, you would have your little groups go off in a corner and some people would lurk, and some people would be outside smoking, and you could also eavesdrop. And so it was fascinating to me because I know nothing about virtual worlds or actually anything metaverse related. I just jumped in and, I don't know, tried to figure something out. But the audio, how the audio sort of disappears based on your proximity and stuff like that. And I feel very uncomfortable in an avatar form. Like I hate it. Like I hate virtual worlds actually. So that's a very and I think part of what, I don't know, maybe reading between the lines, but coming across your work is that we can dream this up. Like we don't have to duplicate what's in the physical or duplicate what's in the virtual into the physical. This is an entirely new thing. This hybrid thing can be something entirely new rather than a hybrid, and what that would mean, I suppose.
But by the way, I just wanted to mention that I'm very inspired by Tess's idea. I want to put a microphone in the room in my classroom and not turn it on get to talk.
I
Sounds
think
like that would work.
I think there was it was something about how you had to make your avatar, and a lot of times I think the avatar, if memory serves, is just a circle with your initials in it, but you had to line it up at the mic if you had something to say. And for some reason, based on their research of doing this, psychologically, more people would line themselves up and to talk as opposed to just raising their hands. And maybe it's because they weren't on camera. I don't know what I don't know enough about it. It was just mentioned to me in a conversation.
Kind of the opposite of that is I had an experience working with someone in California when I was still in London for months before we met to work together. And this was in the Skype days. So we just had Skype running all day, audio only. So we would just, even if we weren't talking, it would be on for hours, just in the background. And then we needed, blah, blah, blah. There was no button to click. We were there. So it was an audio connected environment. It worked shockingly well.
Yeah, we're trying to duplicate that with co-working spaces. So it's just, if you feel like, someone can butt in occasionally, join the lounge on Discord. Maybe nobody says anything. Maybe it's sort of just feeling less alone when you're working remotely.
There's
They
also
had that in the 1950s. They were called party lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just
What?
talking about how this metaverse
Party
thing is
lines.
very, very old concept.
Well, there's also an inspiration to be taken from Star Trek, right? What I really like, and I don't understand, Brandel, you have to get Apple to do it every couple of years. I try to get them to do it. The communicator, right? The way it works, I think, is you tap on it and then you say, Brandel, can you come to the bridge? So that is then recorded, sent to Brandel. The audio comes out as an audio clip. If he chooses to respond, there's an open line. So the ringtone becomes the request for the call. That's really cool.
Walkie-talkie is still on watch, isn't it? I don't
It's
use it
walkie-talkie,
anymore.
but it's also those buzzers, beepers that the hospitals ran around with. What do
Yeah,
they call them?
the
I had a brief
Yeah,
moment
pages.
before.
The walkie-talkie is there, but I want to be able to, let's say it's just my favorites on my iPhone or whatever device by name. So I want to be able to say, Tom Hames, blah, blah, blah. Right, so Tom becomes the act to make the call, the address for the call, the recording of the ringtone, right? Something like that could probably work in a semi-virtualized environment where you kind of call into it or call out of it and so on. But again, we're going to be talking about people next month, so let's not talk too much about the people interaction today. Let's go a little bit back to the spatial annotations. Right, so let's say we have a notion of the record of today's meeting spatialized. Maybe we all have different environments or not, I don't know. But we probably want to be able to put our own thoughts and to pull out thoughts from like the official timeline, right? These kind of meetings can have live transcripts, we know that. They won't necessarily be annotated with person, depending on the system we use. But to be able to say, what Brandel said there was really cool. Pull that over here. Put a little thing around it. Maybe speak something around it. One thing we have in our current AI analysis of our meetings is we tell the LLM that it is a part of the meeting. So if we say, for instance, Claude, this bit is important, it's expected it's going to write it up as being important, even though we use ChatGPT right now, but whatever. So here's a question. Mark Anderson, who couldn't be here today, has talked a few times about we no longer write for necessarily a human reader to read off paper. It may be a machine, it may be AI. It may be read in many different configurations compared to what we think we're laying it out for. Maybe what we should consider is changing our speech so that in these meetings we are more aware of an audience in the future, more aware of an LLM coming in. So for instance, somebody might not just say a thing, but more expressly say, oh, in relation to what so-and-so was saying a few minutes ago, or, trying to give a bit more context. Maybe that kind of formalism would be stultifying. Maybe it would be useful. I don't know. Any thoughts?
Language is a dynamic, fluid process,
It is.
and trying to force that in particular directions is going to drive us crazy. I think it is interesting to think about how language is going to morph over time for precisely the reasons you just said. But I think our brains would explode if we tried to pretend that we are 50 years in the future and actually talk that way. It's one thing to imagine it. It's another thing to actually fluently speak it.
Thank you. Well, actually, in broadcast, you get used to resetting yourself a lot. If you're filming a podcast or something, for example, and you skip, or a TV show, and you mush your words around and you stop, and people, as they get better at it, know to stop and reset themselves and go back to the beginning of their thought so that there's clear edit points. But also in shows that are unscripted, reality based, whether it's competition or something else, a lot of times the producers will ask you questions, and you have to phrase it as you have to phrase the answer including the question. If they go, "What do you think is the hardest thing about singing in front of the judges tonight?" The skill is in going, the hardest thing about singing in front of the judges tonight is and so that there's a context for the questions that they're asking you. So, I think in a sense, it's not that impossible.
I think your pushback, Tom, is very useful because it moves the suggestion a little bit into what is possible versus what is mandated. Several types of meetings have, whatever Robert's Rules of Order or whatever it might be. So if we frame it in the community as being opportunities rather than what you have to do, one thing that's changed is exactly what we were talking about earlier. Because it's online, people don't talk over each other as much. So that's already happened, right? But to know that if you speak more explicitly about what's happening, you have more anchors in the transcript. So, I don't think we should try to go Mr. Spock level logic, everything has to be there, but we should be aware of some of the opportunities for that. Digital beanbags, that's not a bad idea. But also, and this is a great topic, we don't have that much time left on this meeting, is considering we have one new person today, thank you, how to widen the community, right? One of the things we're doing in this community is awareness that these are even things to talk about. So we do need to try to find wider groups of people to include in these sessions, because somebody might think we're talking about fonts or only VR. We are most certainly not. So if you have thoughts on this, I would love to hear it. But Tom, please go ahead.
I just want to elaborate on my comment there. You do know the source of that is friend of the program, Alan Kay, said that they had beanbags at Xerox PARC so that no one could leap to their feet and start an argument. That
so, I did not know that. That's fantastic. Thank you.
But it actually makes a salient point in that the narrative shifts where when we're talking like this. You're right. We can't do a Robert Altman film. We all have to sort of talk in turn. Although we could try it, I don't think it would work. Technically, it would be problematic. But it does change the discourse. It changes how we express ourselves than if we're sitting in a room together or at a table in a restaurant or something like that. And it changes that whole narrative structure. I think that we also have to take, when you're thinking about deliberately shifting the narrative to be LLM friendly or whatever that means, you also have to recognize that this is not a natural conversation either. And neither is talking to someone on the phone. Neither is, and one of the problems with these kind of conversational spaces, especially chats and I've ran into this certainly during COVID, is that you lose a lot of that external context, and you can really piss people off inadvertently because of what they read into the spaces between your text and what you tended to be in those spaces. Whereas if you're in a room together, there's at least a certain level of body language and just atmosphere that mitigates that to a degree. And so I think we are very prone in the digital world, and this is something that a lot of people have commented on, is that, we need digital beanbags because people go off on each other very easily because it's too easy to jump up and scream, "Hey, I'm right, look at me," right? And so, these are all complex interactions that we have to think about as if we're really talking about narrative in these kind of environments. So just
I
put
think
that
that,
out there.
I think that's fair enough, Tom. But I have to say, even in the real world, if there's more than one conversation happening at a table, I get really confused.
Oh yeah, 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 I'm sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm just saying it's easier though. It is definitely easier.
Yeah, maybe. But it is, I mean, these things, I've done over 500 of these now, 2 years of which were Sloan. Certainly there can be arguments that can be unpleasantness. It's, in the particular ones that I host, it's my responsibility that it doesn't happen. I've not always been successful, but I have learned. And some of the things is rules, right? One of the rules we have this year, we're not going to discuss PDF versus HTML. I know it sounds silly, but we have a few of those where we believe certain issues have been put to rest. And also when it comes to politics, because of the world right now, nothing wrong with a mention, nothing wrong with it in the beginning for context or at the end of the conversation, but that ain't what we're doing, right? And that's
Hmm.
so nice to have a relatively clear community on that. It helps a lot. But,
Sure.
and of course, Tom, these are, what we're doing now, is it digital? In a sense, that could be analog video we're watching now, right? So,
Hmm.
we're just together and like a little postage stamp
Yeah, no, I
points.
didn't want to say that this inevitably leads to conflict. What I am saying more is that we do need to be sensitive to the realities of different communication media,
Yeah.
in terms of, in ways that even crap, just my brain isn't working now. But that even McLuhan couldn't have imagined 50 years ago,
Absolutely. And kind of in closing, we have 15 minutes left. By the way, in the future, I think we're going to keep going half an hour longer. But um, I would really like if you guys could think about how you would want a virtual, I don't even know what I want to call this. It's not really a meeting, a virtual thing, right, to go alongside this. And why in the world we would ever want to go back to another meeting, right? Maybe what we want to do is take an entire year and saying, I'd like to see the shape of how we changed our ideas, maybe, right? But how we actually want that. And also, I'm really seduced by the idea of having a monthly journal. So if you have thoughts on that, or even if you want to write something for it, great. Otherwise, I think it's just going to be different kinds of summaries of our meetings that's put together in a shareable form. And maybe we'll do the potty. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, there are transcriptions. I have them somewhere on my something or other. Yeah, I'll work with how to most efficiently make that available to you guys. I think it should be
yeah,
public.
there's some software that will help you automate it
Oh,
these
well,
days too.
what I use is Sonics. It does all the speech to text. Then it
Hmm.
identifies people, but it doesn't remember who the person is to the next section. So I have to write Tom Hames every time, Peter Demetrius every time. Well, Peter, you don't speak much, so I don't have to write your name often. But I have to go through and make sure I don't miss anybody because
Yeah.
it never, usually some people talk a lot more than others. Um, yeah, so
Jonathan.
Jonathan, yeah. Just pretend
Hi,
you're in the
yeah.
room and speak.
Don't know why the gestures aren't working. They're meant to just work, aren't they? But they don't work for me. Anyway, yeah, just a very simple observation about, uh, if I understand correctly, maybe how to visualize some of these possibly rather complicated summaries of series of meetings happening over a month or a year or something like that. I mean, I've read some of the um, summaries you've done in the past, which I think you've done by probably running a rather complicated LLM prompt that you've built up and then maybe editing the results. I don't know. I think they're very good.
But one feature which I've often seen is there's a section saying these topics were discussed or something, and then has a different, basically different, approaching it from different dimensions. So these people were mentioned or something, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
These people's minds were changed in such and such a way, and then various things like this. These are obviously effectively different axes or slices through.
Keep talking, Jonathan. I've stepped away for a second. Test this here. Just 1 second.
Okay, yeah. So these are obviously different slices through the conversations, and just a very simple way of putting that into XR, if that's what we're talking about, perhaps, would be to take those different views of the meeting or series of meetings and turn each one perhaps into a really simple mind map with or knowledge map of whatever kind. And so you would have, well, you might have one space in which you've got different clusters of information about the same meeting or series of meetings. So one cluster is people and what they said or something, and then a different cluster is topics and what was said about them. Sorry, these are rather mundane, but there'll be more interesting ways of cutting across the information. So all I'm talking about is running exactly those kind of elaborate LLM prompts that Frodo's been using, and that produces text, and then turning that into a mind map like 3D representation.
I don't think it's mundane either, because it is like, if you were going to look at what's useful to take out of this conversation, for one person it might just be the links we talked about. For someone else it might be the topics. Do we need to converse in a new language for the sake of this? Like, that could be its own topic.
Sure. So Tom is saying this is very, very like his project.
Oh.
Is that right? Yeah, I think so. So shall I just summarize, Frodo, what I said? I was just saying, take those different aspects, different summaries of a meeting or a series of meetings that you've been generating with an LLM, like what people said, different topics that were discussed, and other more elaborate things like ways in which people's minds were changed and so on. Each of those, I was just saying, could be turned into a mind map or some kind of knowledge graph, semantic graph, with objects somehow in 3D space, if you want to end up with an XR thing. And then one could discuss how that could be arranged in space. It might be you have a room, which is represents the whole series of conversations, and then different areas in it. You've got a connected series of objects or something here, connected series of objects here. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Tom's project is pretty similar. I mean, obviously, we've all seen things a bit like this, but maybe the devil's in the details. Exactly what information you want to glean from these meetings, what slices through the information is useful.
So that's really, really interesting, Jonathan. It makes me think of well, first of all, if you guys have something that you believe should be in these, extracted from these, do tell me. And thank you, Ken, for that note. I'll go through that. Please email me. I've done what you're saying, Jonathan, for quite a while over the last few years, but it's become very listy. So when you read it on a traditional personal computer, it's just too much. Spatially,
textually, as text. Sure.
So then we get to the question of what information is for navigation, what is for context, and what is for content, right? For instance, the fact that what's his name again? I forget it again. Brett Victor has been mentioned, right? That serves several purposes. It's like a holding point, because we may want to hear what we discussed about Brett Victor, but we also would like, if we're looking outside this month, to say, when did they discuss Brett Victor? So then it becomes like a packaging around this month of content. This is where they discussed Brett Victor, right? So there is a difference of how it's presented as this is what we discussed, but this is why it would go there, and these are clusterings of different things. Definitely something to work on, and I will make a journal for this month. I will produce it as raw as possible, so Tom and others can put them into systems to extract different things. Part of the whole point should be that we do different things with it, right? Oh, hang on, I want to see your YouTube video there briefly, Brandel.
Also, who is Brett Fichter? An exterior link would be great, because I wasn't here when you've discussed him in the past.
Yes, the worry dreams, right? Yes, no, that's exactly, that's an example. Thank you, Brandel, that was really cool. Now,
I mean, I would say the challenge is not, and we always get this with things like word clouds or any kind of mind mappy type thing, is not to produce something that is every bit as confusing as or complicated as the original material that you're trying to put into that format. As we know, and yeah, well, the devil's in the details, I suppose. You've got to make the best use of the space so you don't end up with just loads of overlapping icons or overlapping text again, which is worse in 3D. So
you have to decide on what the point is. And that's why we've separated this month from next month. This month was all about this one letter, which was provided lots of fodder. Next month will be about people. So it's like, if we construct this around the notion of knowing how people have changed or what they've published, that's very different from, let's say, we get some major research grants and we're doing one thing, then the space, so to speak, is probably to help other people follow the research, right? So, Jonathan, these are very important questions, and I think Tom has perspectives.
Yeah, I think one thing I want to emphasize is, Jonathan made a good point about complexity. I mean, the whole point of visualization is to reduce the complexity, and that's the real challenge. One of the things that, and you're right, we need to figure out what we can either establish what the point is or what we think the point is, but I also think it's really interesting to see what the AI thinks the point is, because we may think we're talking about one thing when we're actually talking about something else. And these are, typical blind spots that humans have in general. And really, that's what one of the key differences between the way the Knowledge Navigator will work and most of the other ones or all the other ones I've ever seen out there, is there's a randomness, because I want the AI to establish the ontology, not to have the human put their finger on the scale and say, okay, this is the way things are. And the objective there is to show you patterns of information that make you think about problems in a different manner, and connect things up to different things that you are like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize that, this was connected to this, that was connected to this. To me, those are the real moments of inspiration and innovation, where I suddenly becomes clear to me that this is the same thing as something else that I'm working on, and the thing I'm working on right now for pedagogy and assessment, I've a whole list of things that I know work really well in terms of the way human brains work and the way assessment strategies should be set up around that we don't do in education. And I put those all into a notebook LM, and I use them to construct the course. And I was able to fold in all of these different perspectives. And people are like, well, these two things don't go together. I'm like, yeah, actually they do if you look at it in this way. And that's what I'm looking for, both from a visualization as well as just sort of general fusion. And I think we could do a lot of very interesting things with the ideas that float around in these meetings as well as elsewhere. Yes. Although I think Horn, actually, I think I drive him a little crazy, because he wants that point. He wants to define that clearly, and his mission. Yeah, I'm seeing what you're showing up there, Jonathan. He wants you to define that mission clearly and use the visualization as a map to get there. I want to create maps of unexplored territory.
So, Tom, on that,
Yeah.
I am very careful how I approach AI in the group, because, first of all, the earlier days of the future of text, there was kind of text fighting for attention and resources images, audio, 3D, all of that stuff. I mean, remember the horrible old term rich media, meaning that text was poor media, right? So that's really, it's been going for 15 years now, the future of text. That was really what we're up against. Right now, I acknowledge the reality of AI. I find it useful. When I wrote my letter to Jessica, I asked ChatGPT to research her and tell me what it felt about the letter, and we had a dialogue. It never wrote a single word for me, but it helped me with the tone and so on. I think that's fine, but there are literally trillions of dollars being invested in AI to help people either think or think for them, which of course is a scary thing, and I know you're absolutely not on that camp, Tom.
No.
So what I really want to push towards here is, while acknowledging all that, the spatiality of knowledge. Because it's really, really hard to even understand what that is. For me, absolutely. Right, so have some LLM to help, do some categorization and all of that is fine. Doing a full notebook and all of that in the regular world is fine. I'm just sorry for repeating myself. I'm just wary about doing too much of the AI in this particular series of discussions. I don't know how people feel about that.
So I look at this as, AI and text have a symbiotic relationship as well as AI and humans. And that, to me, I don't think we can get to an accurate visualization. I mean, maybe with a lot of work and tools and stuff like that, eventually get there. But the problem is, by the time we define what something means visually, the moment has passed, and that visualization has to change yet again. And so, yeah.
So sorry, yeah, no, I kind of agree with that. It's useful for doing rapid things like, what names were mentioned, all of that stuff. But once we go a little further, and your project, Tom, I have absolutely nothing against. I think it is great what you're doing. I'm just talking about where we choose to push the dialogue towards. I'm very much an infrastructure guy. If we can't get the data, we can't do it. And I think a large part of what you're saying is that, and I can see you nodding for the record, for the AI, for the record, right? Anyway, so yeah, thank you all for today. And I will try to open up and send you all an email about where the sources for the month is, so we can play in different ways. And we just, do we all agree that we believe there is something over the horizon in putting on a headset and helping us kind of free our minds? There is something there, right? Oh, Davos conversation. I'm going to look at that after.
I really recommend us to look at that.
And philosophers, Yuval.
Sorry. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, since we've been talking about, since we were bookending this conversation with AI, at Davos, Yuval Noah Harari, he's a historian. He talks about, he gave basically probably the most sober perception of like what AI in its current iteration, how it will change society, talking about how these are not just tools, but actual agents that are able to make decisions, and talks about how our humans' command over language was our superpower, and how these tools, which are really like these agents, which are built around like language as their core, they'll be able to write like the best love stories, for example. They'll be able to write the best, he's talking about like how they'll be able to have dominion over so many things that are within the realm of language. And these are like love stories. This is like law. And this is like our economic institutions as well, oftentimes. And it's really an essential conversation, I think, that people need to be listening to right now.
Thank you. I'm just also clicking on Tom's link. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I am. That's okay. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
That was my fault for putting the cable in the wrong place.
No, I just wasn't looking. I'm sorry.
So that was no, I actually changed it. No, don't worry. I don't need the power now. We'll just leave it. Sorry. So that was physical and digital literally colliding there. The dominion word that you used there is one of those words that will stay with me on this, because I mean, have you guys heard any of the music I've done over the last episodes? If not, please.
I'm curious.
Okay, yeah, go back into the record on Future Text Lab and listen, because it's absolutely phenomenally high quality. And I am not a good musician, so I'm not crediting myself. But the fact that I can take our record, go into ChatGPT, which 5.2, which is the best for this, I've tried many, and say, make this lyrical, make it poetic. It doesn't have to easily make sense. It's supposed to be inspirational, but it has to be factual based on this meeting we had. And then I go to sono.com and then I give it a style. Usually it's like 1970s easy listening with some rap and jazz influences, blah, blah, blah. And it produces stuff that if this was 2 years ago, I swear we couldn't tell wasn't human made. Right? Having done many of these as an experiment, there's a certain kind of sameness, just like the images generated through LLMs have a certain kind of sameness, but it is going into the whole notion of dominion, right? Of music, of being able to have different ways to express and to see. I want to be able to be in XR, take a piece of knowledge and move it there, and then do a thing and see more. Actually, in the last few minutes, let me just explain. Actually, you know what? If are you all willing to spend another few minutes? Okay, good. I take that as a yes. I'm going to do a brief screen share of the end of this project of the letter, which obviously, like all research, went in different directions. Because there's one thing that happens. Hang on. Tess had this on Lost, and her head is just a touch smaller than mine. And my big old skull. Okay, so mirror my view. Please tell me that you can see. You can see, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Right, so I'm just going to clip this battery thing on, which is the best accessory for this headset. I'm going to close this. So this is where we are. Just going to go into this document. So normal text, all very cool. And then I'm clicking on map. Unfortunately, I need to keep the document in the space. So I'm just going to move it to the side. We don't need it right now. So this is, of course, a mess. But Ken Foyper, you're still here, right? Is Ken still here?
I'm still here.
Obviously, this is your interaction. I'm looking one place and moving my hand elsewhere. Let's make very clear that you are credited with this. So now I'm making a mess just to dimensionalize it, because this was all obviously, when I was working on the computer, this was the plane. And look at this, I can go behind the information. Currently, nothing appears when I go behind it, but that doesn't mean it couldn't, right? So even this, and so I'm tapping on selecting this one, I can see connections to other things. The kind of interactions we'll hopefully be able to do this week is that when I have this, I do a tap and then everything else hides that isn't connected, because we need to manage this space, right? And also an action, and I want it to be this, like you squeeze together, it takes whatever I'm looking at, puts it back into 0 set dimension. But there is such an incredible joy in being able to move these things around. And I'm really thinking, I don't know, that's a bit weird. Let's close that. Now please note that all of these, even though you can't really say it, all these words are actually 3D. Every character. See how detailed it is. No wonder you need a M5. And that was enough to crash the whole thing. I'm going to go back in actually. You're all still there, right? So here is,
Very cool.
you can see me? Have we
Yes.
lost okay, you can all still see, right?
You're visible, yes.
Okay, so here is our book, Future of Text, last year. some pictures and all of this, right? So this can be very easily presented like this. But the notion, of course, is that inside the text, what you can do from a normal PDF, you can get these things to come up from that text. And then you can have further information, as some of these have. Like, okay, let's take this one. So you can read a lot, and then you make it small. It's the most obvious interactions. I'm going to go out of the headset again. It's the most obvious interactions, but over the while of experimenting with this, it seems to be something we should take seriously and try to build better ways to manage, to see more, to see connections, to hide stuff, wrap things around, progressive disclosure, all of that. And hopefully it can be a bit of an architecture for our meeting record at some point. I don't know if that answered anyone's questions, but there you go. That's where we are now. Index cards in space. Probably the very first thing we talked about in the community, and now it works. It's unfortunately only for the Apple Vision Pro. We are going to see what we can do about other platforms later. Any other thoughts for today before we reconvene on Monday week? Thank you very much for today, and have a wonderful week. And if you can, if it suits, see you on Monday. If not, especially for you, Ken, we'll try to have a record where you can participate or see. And also, we may change the meeting times. So if you have better time, please let me know. All right. See you later, everyone. Bye.